Members of Parliament, support staff, visitors in the public tribune, radio listeners, TV viewers, all viewing this meeting via social media, as well as members of the media, a very good morning to all. I want to welcome you to this Central Committee meeting of Parliament for today, Central Committee meeting number 2 for today, Wednesday, September 11th. At this time, I want to give a special welcome to the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, Mrs. Grisha Maarten, and her entire support staff. We have established a quorum representing 4 factions, so I invite you to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the following members: MP La Cruz, MP De Wever, MP Marlin. I have also received notice of lateness from the members Melissa Gomes, Egbert Duran. Those are those for lateness. Are there any notifications from the floor of Parliament at this time? I see MP Kotai requesting the floor. MP Kotai, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to my colleagues, Honorable Minister of TEAT and her staff, those in the Tribune and those tuned in via social media. Before we get into this meeting, through you, Madam Chair, I want to just bring up a matter of serious concern. Last week, a series of robberies at supermarkets. On the 8th of September at 6:35 in the evening in town, a gentleman was jumped by 7 youth. In the early hours of Monday, the 9th of September, 2 supermarkets robbed in the Middle Region area. In the night of the same day, a jewelry store in Maho gets robbed and a gentleman gets sent to the hospital in the ambulance with a fractured face. Tuesday, the 10th of September, another store in town gets robbed. Most of these incidents bold-faced, with no mask. The perpetrators are not scared of the law. I am calling on the police force to strategically see the trend and plan accordingly to prevent such acts of crime instead of only advising businesses and the general public to be on the lookout and to be safe. I also urge the Justice Minister as well to address this proactively and get ahead of the situation before this explodes in a manner that can hamper our fragile state of the economy and existence for both visitors and residents alike. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Kotai, for that notification. I don't see any further indication of notifications, so then we can go over to the agenda point for this meeting. And that agenda point is update by the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, the Minister of TEAT, regarding agriculture on St. Maarten. A brief explanation on this agenda point is as follows. The opening of the new parliamentary year 2024-2025, which took place yesterday, Tuesday, September the 10th, in accordance with the Constitution of St. Maarten, was held under the theme Uncovering and Supporting Agriculture and Sustainable Agricultural Practices. As mentioned before, this theme seeks to highlight sustainability in our community and specifically sustainable practices and methods currently being utilized by local leaders and pioneers in the agricultural sector with the aim of ensuring food security. These initiatives provide concrete and insightful examples of how a sector such as this can mean so much for the community of St. Maarten on different fronts. I want to encourage members of the public who might have missed the opening of Parliament for one, and secondly, the video that was shown regarding the topic and the theme for this parliamentary year, that they can do so via YouTube and the channel of Parliament. So I encourage you to go back to that if you have missed it, and this is to the general public, and you will understand why Parliament chose this theme and how beneficial it can be to St. Maarten once we put it all together. As Parliament, we are tasked with overseeing government policies. And in line with this responsibility, and the theme of Parliament previously mentioned, the Minister of TIAT has been invited to give an update to Parliament regarding agriculture and the sector here on St. Martin. It has not gone unnoticed to Parliament that several initiatives have already been made in this regard by the Minister of TIAT, and so we of Parliament look forward to the presentation by the Minister giving us an update regarding agriculture on St. Martin in general. So it is in that context that we have this meeting here today, and it is now my pleasure to give the floor to the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, Mrs. Grisha Heiliger Maarten, to give her opening remarks and or presentation. Minister of TIAT, you have the floor.
Good morning, Chair Lady, and good morning to the Secretary General, honorable members of Parliament, and my fellow Swaligans tuning in through various mediums. Just under 11 months ago, MP Sarah Westcott Williams and I embarked on a collaborative journey to establish the CAFA Committee, focused on parliamentary oversight, coordination, and reporting on the sustainable development of the agriculture, fisheries, and animal husbandry on St. Martin. This initiative later became a cornerstone of our campaign pledge and emphasizing food security within the food framework of the color economy, namely the green economy. As many of you have observed, we both hit the ground running in our respective roles as President of Parliament and Minister of TIAT. During yesterday's reopening of Parliament, as you may have noticed, the theme was agriculture, and the new parliamentary session highlighted the significance of this sector, and it is fitting that one of our first meetings today focuses on this crucial area. So why the emphasis on agriculture? Our focus stems primarily from the need for food security. History has shown us how vulnerable we are when faced with hurricanes and pandemics, revealing only a small percentage of our population that has the knowledge and skills to grow food. Those who do often have limited resources to work with insufficiency, and could pose a challenge for all of us. With that in mind, today I'm here to provide an update on the state of agriculture, and I will outline where we currently stand and share our vision for the future and direction for the sector. The table of content, what we'll be discussing today, is food security for St. Martin, the importance of food security for St. Martin, our current state of agriculture, our fact-finding mission that we've embarked on the last 4 months, and finally, our vision for the agriculture on St. Martin. So why is food security important for St. Martin? Food security is important through a few key factors. St. Martin depends heavily on imported foods. St. Martin relies so much on it, and this makes our country vulnerable to disruptions in global chains, rising of food prices, or import restrictions. By improving food security, St. Martin can reduce its dependence on external sources and ensure a more stable food supply. St. Martin is in the hurricane belt. Our island is prone to hurricanes and other natural disasters. These events can disrupt food imports and damage local infrastructure, leading to food shortages. A strong local food system would help the country recover fast and ensure residents have access to food in times of crisis. Another way to address this issue is by having alternative supply routes originating from outside the hurricane belt, like Trinidad and Tobago and Suriname. Health and nutrition are a must. Imported processed foods often dominate the local diet, leading to public issues such as obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. Encouraging local food production and consumption can improve access to fresh, healthy produce, promoting better public health and reducing the burden on healthcare. Environmental sustainability. Promoting local agriculture can reduce environmental impact, encourage sustainable farming practices, and help preserve the island's natural resources. It's also important through our cultural preservation. Enhancing food security through local agriculture helps preserve traditional crops, farming techniques, and cultural practices related to food. This strengthens the cultural identity and promotes local pride. Another one is the economic stability. Tourism, as we all know, is our primary industry, but it is vulnerable to global economic downturns and disasters. Developing local agriculture and enhancing food security can create jobs, diversify the economy, and reduce reliance on tourism. This would strengthen the overall economic reliance of our country. In summary, food security is very crucial for St. Maarten. It's crucial to build a reliance against external shocks, ensure the well-being of its citizens, and promote long-term economic and environmental sustainability. So what is our current state of agriculture in St. Maarten? So the Animal, Livestock, Fishery Department, which I like to call ALF Department. So the ministry has a department, ETT, and an execution department, which is an execution department and an inspection department. Both are responsible for agricultural, livestock, and fishery. Currently, 3 persons in the inspection department and 2 policy workers from the policy department are assigned to the ALF sector, or for ALF matters. However, due to capacity limitation, only 1 qualified person is dedicated to agriculture-related tasks, while most inspectors focus on handling animal and import requests. Policy development and research collaborations are managed by the policy department. So in summary, our ALF consists of just 4 persons. Since December 2022, St. Maarten has approved an ALF policy framework that functions as a guide towards the development of agriculture, livestock, and fishery. A copy was also sent to Parliament for review, for perusal. This document provides a blueprint for the advancement of agriculture on the island of St. Maarten to achieve the objectives of securing and strengthening food security as a contributor to the economic development of the island. What type of researches have we done thus far? Recently, a published research paper focused primarily on agriculture on St. Maarten titled Investigating Challenges and Opportunities in Developing Local Agriculture Food Production Systems in St. Maarten, which is a complex adaptive system analysis conducted through the USM, managed by the executive of Mr. Eugene Hoogstad, with the collaboration with the then Minister of TIAD and the ETT department, gives a good insight into the challenges and opportunities of the sector. The paper has already been published since June of 2024 and can be also made available to the members of Parliament. Matter of fact, we're going to be sending that publication very soon to the members of Parliament today. Another newly established research is through the E6, Teweo country package. 300,000 guilders has been made available for research in agriculture between the months of June 2024 to December 2026. Currently, a research project proposal is being finalized with the intended results to obtain a better understanding of the support that can be provided to farmers in order to stimulate their further development and commercial environment that they may have available to them to operate. Under educational programs, we have something called the School Agri Initiative. Since 2022, the ministry has been supporting schools with active agriculture programs, starting with 7 schools. The program now includes as many as 13 participating schools. The total subsidy for this program amounts to 36,000 guilders per school yearly. and ETT monitors the efforts of these programs while relevant data is collected through the school's annual report for evaluation purposes. Another educational program is the Hydroponics Train the Trainer program. The EU-funded GO program, Train the Trainer Hydroponics program, is slated to commence in October next month, with 8 schools, 6 primary and 2 secondary, to participate in the program. Participants will receive training on how to build hydroponic system and how to train 9 others from the community to do the same. Government will be responsible for providing the seeds. For budgetary and sustainability purposes, the intention is to redirect the funds allocated for the school's agri initiative to the hydroponics program. Our current state of agriculture is also met with challenges. Challenges like lack of a meaningful budget. Also, lack of standards, quality control and certification, as well as lack of policy and legislation. There's no dedication, there's lack of a comprehensive infrastructure for policy development, implementation, research, and stakeholder engagement, thus a lack of an ALF department, our own agriculture, livestock, and fishery department. We don't have a full-fledged department. Another challenge we face are the invasive species like the monkeys, the iguanas, and the snails. Fortunate for us, an EU project that will focus on addressing the monkeys issues on both sides of the island specifically is currently being developed with the involvement of technocrats from both sides of the island. And lastly, land space remains a critical issue. Lack of central space for farmers to sell their produce. Next, we go on to our recent fact-finding mission. During my brief tenure as Minister of TIAT, I embarked on a fact-finding mission to better understand the local and regional landscape of agriculture. It first started with a trip to Statia. So this started in late May. I sent a delegation on my behalf to Statia to attend the Dutch Caribbean Agriculture, Livestock and Fishery Alliance, DC Alpha. The DC Alpha conference was held in May 27 to the 31st. The purpose of this conference was to build upon ongoing efforts to develop, finalize, and solidify short to long-term actions and agreements that stimulate and support cooperations between the Dutch Caribbean islands in the areas of agriculture, animal husbandry, and fisheries. The overarching vision is to create sustainable and healthy food security opportunities for our islands. During the 2023 conference, ministers and commissioners responsible for the agriculture, livestock, and fisheries in their respective countries participated in the signing of the memorandum of MOU to formalize the cooperation, and this too can be shared with Parliament, this MOU. Respective representatives actively participated in both strategic and technical meetings during the 5-day conference. These individuals played a key role in the oversight and development of the sector, in line with the national agriculture, livestock, and fishery policies. The same representatives who also attended the last year's DC Alpha events in Aruba and Curacao meet virtually on a bi-weekly basis with other island representatives and the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, the RVO. These meetings focus on knowledge sharing and provide updates on ongoing agriculture, livestock, and fishery activities and tracking progress on the DC Alpha mandates and the MOU. The conference was another step forward in strengthening the regional cooperation and enhancing food security across the Dutch Caribbean. Next, we have the trip to St. Kitts and Nevis. So after visiting the farmers, I found it essential to invite 2 farmers join me on a trip to St. Kitts and Nevis. And I was fortunate to have Mr. Jocelyn Richardson join us, who was already in St. Kitts working on an aquaponic project. During our trip to St. Kitts and Nevis, our primary focus was on regional cooperation as a key strategy to enhance food security for our island. We held productive meetings with the Honorable Minister Samuel Duggins of St. Kitts and Eric Evelyn of Nevis. And all parties agreed on the importance of pursuing the 25 by 2025 goal, reducing our food import expenditures by 25% by the year 2025, which is a UN initiative. The agriculture program in St. Kitts is significantly supported by the government subsidies, primarily funded through the Citizens by Investment CBI program, which enables the government to collect substantial revenues for advancing their agricultural vision. The report of my trip, I also submitted to Parliament. I think Parliament has a copy of that, but I can also provide key insights from it in general so that the public can understand what we were able to assess. We were able to ascertain that the government plays a key role in accelerating planting and harvesting process, assisting with planting and selling seedlings. So they will provide the farmers with seedlings. They would go and then grow whatever fruit or vegetables, and they can come back to the government. The government will then package it and sell it. There is still a vast amount of land available for agriculture in St. Kitts. Imagine, St. Kitts is double the size of St. Maarten, the entirety of St. Maarten, and has half the population of St. Maarten. Nevis is the same size as the Dutch side of St. Maarten, and 1/3 of the population of the Dutch side of St. Maarten. So imagine how much land they have to grow fruits and vegetables. So both agricultural officials emphasize the importance of promoting agriculture as a modern, clean, and lucrative profession rather than a traditional perception of hard, dirty, and less profitable work. St. Kitts and Nevis produced an abundance of goods that could be exported to St. Maarten at more affordable pricing, benefiting our local consumers as well. St. Kitts also expressed a strong interest in conducting trade with St. Maarten through transportation between the islands, but it kind of remains right now a challenge for us to do that, seeing that we have a shortage of cargo vessels. While St. Kitts has no water scarcity to undergo, thanks to their underground rivers and mountain streams, water harvesting remains a challenge for the island. This collaboration offers a great potential for our island's agriculture future, but there are logistic hurdles that we must overcome together. And that was my brief summary of St. Kitts. Next, during the fact-finding mission, we met with the collectivité on our northern side, on the French side. As part of my fact-finding mission, I also visited the northern side of St. Maarten, where I met with Vice President of the Collectivité of St. Maarten, Mr. Alain Richardson. Our discussions were productive and aligned. The Vice President Richardson also emphasized the critical need for food security across the island, particularly in light of vulnerabilities exposed by hurricanes and pandemic. He highlighted the importance of reducing food imports for health reasons and achieving self-sufficiency. Both of us agree that agriculture training should be an integral part into the school curricula, both on the French and the Dutch side, with the potential for establishing specialized agricultural schools for further advancement of this initiative. Additionally, we reached an agreement to share the results of studies and research, which will lead to better synchronization of policies and standards in agriculture, fisheries, and others across the board. The main collaboration is to foster a strategic partnership and coordinate efforts between north and south of the island. The meeting concluded with a proposal to establish a memorandum, MOU, and that will facilitate joint efforts to preserve natural habits and biodiversity while promoting sustainable development. And the last part of my fact-finding mission is my most favorite part, when I visited the local farms. There's a saying that goes, you need to hear it straight from the source. And what better source than our local farmers? By speaking directly with them, I gained a valuable insight into the agricultural industry and gathered suggestions on how to effectively establish the agricultural department to move the sector forward. I believe it is crucial to focus and capitalize our ability to farm and grow food locally, and my visit only amplified my commitment to promoting and supporting local farming. I visited the Yellow Sage Farm with Liana Wati and Arian Neumann. At the Yellow Sage Farm, they sell kale, basils, hot pepper, rosemary, parsley, lettuce. One of my favorite was the wasabi lettuce and oregano. I also visit the Echo St. Maarten Agriculture Research and Development Foundation, which is by Mr. Denisio Wyatt. There he sells salad mix, bananas, bilimbi, star fruits, soursaps, sugar apple, guava berry, mango, callaloo, kale, eucalyptus, basil, mint, seasoned peppers, okra, pumpkin. And he also creates fruit plant and vegetable seedlings on demand for those that wants to garden in the backyard. I also visit the arrowroot farms with Mr. Joe Harley. There he sells lettuce, pumpkin, arugula, collard greens, eggplants, papaya, cassava, microbeans, green onions, thyme, celery, cilantro, oregano, basil, lemongrass, dill, honey, eggs, and in high season, he sells fresh fish and chicken. Fresh fish and chicken. I also visited Mr. Joe, better known as Bushman, and there we all know that he engaged mostly in food to the table with his Idle Shack restaurant. And lastly, I visited Miss Angeline Lawrence at the Rockland Farm on the French side of the island. So with that said, what then is our vision for the agriculture in St. Maarten? Our vision is to establish a livestock and fisheries, ALF, an agriculture, livestock, and fishery department, equipped to manage and support the sector, with a focus on modernizing agriculture through innovation such as hydroponics, aquaponics, and virtual farming, just like the Yellow Sage is doing right now. Importance on increasing the annual budget. It's very crucial that we try to increase the annual budget. I'm really looking forward to Parliament assisting me, supporting me on that for the 2025 budget. And this budget is crucial for driving growth and modernization within the sector. With more funds, government can invest in advanced farming techniques such as hydroponics, aquaponics, and sustainable practices, which improve efficiency and boost productivity and reduce reliance on imported food. What's important for us as well is tax exemption for farmers. Exempting farmers from business tax under specified conditions. Supporting farmers by exempting them from business taxes can help their financial burden, allowing them to reinvest in their operations. This can lead to increased productivity, expansion of farming activities, and the overall development of the agriculture sector. By creating a favorable condition, we can encourage more people to enter the industry and help existing farmers thrive, ultimately reducing the island's reliance on import foods and improving food security. Subsidizing water costs for the farmers. Access to affordable water is one of the major challenges for the local farmers and agriculture. This requires consistent and reliable water sources. Establishing a dedicated water supply system using local wells can significantly reduce operational costs for the registered farmers, promoting efficient farming practices and increasing crop yields. By incentivizing farmers' registration, it also contributes to the formalization of the sector, making it easy to track and support agricultural activities and encouraging long-term growth and sustainability in the farming community. Next, capacity building and training. Increased funding enables the creation of training programs for farmers, policy workers, and inspectors. These programs are necessary for building local expertise, improving farming practices, and ensuring that the sector adheres to standards. invest in capacity building programs also for the youths and technocrats through institutions like the UOG, UWI, and the Wageningen University. Promote sustainable farming by allocating more resources to the ALF sector. Government can create funding opportunities that encourage small-scale and backyard farming to transition to commercial farming. This fosters a sustainable agricultural system that can support local food security and contribute to economic diversification. And again, economic diversification, a well-funded sector, ALF sector, can create new jobs and stimulate other subsectors like agritourism and agro-industries. These contribute to broader economic growth while reducing reliance on food security, food imports. Notice I keep mentioning that throughout my presentation, that reducing food reliance on food imports. In closing, food security is just not a luxury. It is an essential pillar of our national reliance and independence. Ensuring that our people have reliable access to nutritious, affordable, and safe food is fundamental to our survival and well-being. We cannot afford to rely solely on imports or distant sources for something as critical as food supply. History has shown us during hurricanes like Lois and Irma, and more recently during the pandemic, how fragile the dependency can be. In those moments, we saw the urgency for growing our own foods, but then we completely detached from that. A strong, thriving agricultural sector is the safety net we need. It empowers us to weather unexpected crises and ensures we can feed our people regardless of the external disruptions. Let us seize this opportunity to lay the foundation for a more self-reliant and resilient nation capable of providing for our own. With that, I end my presentation and look forward to any questions, suggestions, comment, anything that we can put together to make this into a reality. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Minister Heilige Maarten, thank you so much for your presentation. And now, of course, the members of Parliament have the opportunity to react or ask any questions that they might have. I look and I see we have MP Jacobs, and I give the floor to MP Jacobs. MP Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good morning to you. Yes, it's still morning. To my colleagues here in the floor of Parliament, as well as the Griffier, to the Honourable Minister and her support staff, and of course those following in the Tribune and via social media and the media. Madam Chair, through you, I'd like to thank first of all, Parliament for focusing on agriculture for this parliamentary year. And hopefully it's not just for the year, but becomes a way of life for us here on St. Maarten. Of course, also congratulating those who were commended, also the President of Parliament Award for the Youth, those others who were nominated, as well as all of the farmers that were recognized, the local farmers that were recognized during the ceremony yesterday. It is good for us to see that the current administration is focusing, collaborating with Parliament in this regard on ensuring sustainable practices in agriculture, livestock and fisheries, and will be looking to improve on the current department that exists. I was also happy to hear the Minister mention the existing school programs that are running, specifically the 2022 School Agri Initiative, which helps to fund. This is through the Ministry of TEAT, and we were very happy to see that come across the table in the Council of Ministers to facilitate students being exposed to the agricultural programs. I'm happy to see that the EU program also for hydroponics is slated to start next month. The only concern I have, Madam Chair, is a statement made pertaining to removal of funds from one of these programs to another. maybe I misunderstood, but that can be clarified. I heard the minister mention that the funding that is available on the budget for the Agri Initiative would then be transferred to the GO program or the hydroponics training program. I find that instead of doing that, we figure out another place to find those funds because I believe both programs are necessary. The schools that are currently receiving funding to have their backyard farms or their backyard agricultural projects progress would definitely feel the pinch if that is removed. So I'm hoping that that is not what I heard. And I question whether, since the E6 is involved also with an agricultural program or research at least, isn't it possible for us to access funding to ensure that the training that is mentioned, if it's not fully funded by the EU, that we look into funding via the TWO in collaboration with the E6 project or program for reforms in this area. I was also happy to hear that the USM research regarding agriculture has been finalized in June. This at least shows that the initiative started by the previous administration did not stop, and that the work done within the community outside of government is also being taken along. I would like to know, though, through you, Madam Chair, how does the ministry and or the minister aim to utilize this research, as well as the one, how are we collaborating all these separate initiatives that are ongoing to ensure the goals and the vision for agriculture in St. Maarten are met? So what exactly is this E6 project that started in June and would end in December 2026? What is the yearly expectation for that project? Because that now spans 2 full years and a half. I would like to also commend any opportunity for collaboration within the region on the promotion of agriculture. I can remember our forays in the different discussions we've had with Caribbean nations at big events like the United Nations General Assembly, where we all spoke on food security, climate change impact on our small island developing states, and the opportunities that are already available within the EU funding programs. Has the minister had any further discussions? We hear about the collaborations externally, but within government itself, with the Ministry of General Affairs and the Department of BUC specifically, who has some knowledge as to what the other OCTs have already done, whether it's with hydroponics, whether it's with other agricultural projects, because as the former, what was it? I had to sign off as Prime Minister at that time on those projects within the OCTs, and so we saw Anguilla and others doing projects. Isn't it possible for us to not reinvent the wheel also and collaborate in that way? So looking at what OCT projects have already taken place over the past couple of years to ensure that we are not reinventing the wheel and can save time, energy, because we already collaborate in other areas. So that is just a suggestion, if that has not yet been done. As it relates to Saint Martin, I was happy to see within the presentation that meetings have been held. I believe the fisheries conference that was recently held was one where our sole representative, Mr. Butcher, was one of the representatives there. There is also a slaughterhouse on the French side. I heard that it was closed, but at least this is an area for me where I feel if something is already on the island being so small, we could then collaborate with our French neighbors in either collaborating in how it is funded or whatever, but that any slaughtering would take place in that area and we both benefit from it, just like we're collaborating in water and hopefully in energy soon with our northern neighbors. We're definitely one island. I heard about the discussions on climate change and how that affects us, and it is affecting our fisheries as well. I didn't hear much, though, in terms of the plan moving forward for fisheries and how we would be protecting our fishermen and women. That conference did include Anguilla and St. Bart's, and so whatever we're doing moving forward, I would suggest that we include deliberations with those partners as well as SABA and Statia because of the Sabre Bank situation and the moratorium sometimes on fishing for whether it's conch or lobster, which impacts our tourism project as well. I did note that in the minister's vision, one of the latter slides, that things that I definitely saw the need for within the last time was establishing that full-fledged ALF department. I fully support that and would like to see how that would be able to be done. Increasing the annual budget, also fully supportive of that. Besides tax exemptions for farmers and the mentioned subsidized water cost, that was one of them that I was going to suggest anyway. Happy to see you're looking into that. That was being looked at already, but with the current woes at GEBE, but the overproduction of water, I was wondering, would there be any opportunities there or through other government-owned companies investing or divesting some of their funds towards something like this for the community, for the better of the community, and or with investors. I know during our tenure that while we try to put certain contingencies in place for investors to give back to the community, the legal department did not see it possible within our current framework of laws. Has the ministry also seen that investment and procuring more investment for this island is one of the responsibilities of the Ministry of TEAT? Have you looked into the possibility of any legislative changes that would allow us to actually hold investors accountable to good corporate governance, or what do you call that? Corporate social responsibility in terms of a percentage of their profits and or gains from the business they do here going towards such initiatives that would assure our farmers cheaper water or not having to pay for water, which is key for them being able to put forth good produce. Access to land, I didn't hear that mentioned, and I know in my discussions with some of the farmers, especially Ras Bushman, he talked about the success he has had on the hillsides and that we do have some limitation to development in our hillsides. So can we not include that within our zoning plans, that the hillsides are now reserved for farming? And we might not have a lot of flat land, but he has proven that we can do a lot with the hillside. And this could be then a way that he can impact training of other fledgling farmers to be able to expand, and maybe government can then, in collaboration, because we also have a private land ownership issue and a succession land ownership issue which could impact this. So these are things that I believe should be looked at in collaboration with, of course, the Ministry of VROMI, where the zoning is concerned. And one other, well, more than one, the MOUs. I don't know if there were any further discussions, as there were discussions already with Suriname and I believe Dominica and Jamaica for leasing of land that would assist St. Maarten in then having farms in those areas. And we did have a local that had established some of this in Panama. So land being quite inexpensive in that area, acres and acres could be leased, bought by the St. Maarten government, and then of course have St. Maarten produced vegetables, fruits, etc., which we could then have made in St. Maarten in our land in a foreign country. I'm saying all these things, Madam Chair Lady, through you, because for me, it's about continuity. It's about ensuring that we have made use and continue to make use of all opportunities before us in diversifying our economy and in making agriculture a sustainable practice for business and people who have grown fond of digging in the earth. But the challenge for me is then the cost. So while you might be producing better food, how do we now make it affordable for the people of St. Maarten? Because currently, when we do look around, it is still a lot less, or a lot, what's that word? It is more affordable to purchase in a supermarket than to go to the farms and what we're paying there. So how will the investments and or subsidies of government ensure that healthy food remains affordable, thereby really and truly ensuring the food security that is needed. One last, I skipped that when we were talking about the agricultural programs already in place, Madam Chair Lady, but there's also been a collaboration with the Ministry of VSA. So ECYS also had a project going. I don't know if you know about that one. Can you look into that as well? And VSA had the community development as well as their health sector promoting backyard gardens. There was a whole training program where I believe Richardson, Farmer Richardson, that you mentioned, as well as Denisio, were key trainers of persons who wanted to have backyard gardens. So these are already things that were going on even before we went in. And so I would like to know that that is also internal collaboration. We heard in the governor's speech yesterday about the challenge with silo and the silo effect, and we can definitely do more if we collaborate. And so I look forward to hearing how the existing programs in ECYS, VSAs, the one as well as the two you mentioned through TEAT, how these can collaborate to ensure continuity as well as growth in these areas. Madam Chair, I believe through this, and of course the people of St. Maarten will continue to hear from in ways, because I also know of some communities where the community councils are looking at land within their communities to develop farms as well. So any and all initiatives like these, I would think that the different ministries can look at collaborating with together. And I see also several like Freegan Foods and others doing what they can to ensure fresh fruits and vegetables to especially the most vulnerable within our community. So I'd like to hear how the government of St. Maarten aims to collaborate in that regard. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Jacobs, and I continue with the member. I give the floor to MP Roseberg. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Secretary General. Thank you, Minister and support staff for your presentations. My honorable colleagues today present and also the ones viewing online and the ones present here today, a blessed day. Minister, thank you for your presentation once more. I commend your enthusiasm and also your hard work in agriculture. It has been shown. Also, what I would like to ask, adding to what my colleague MP Jacob mentioned, in regards to the schools, when will the project start, or has it started already? I didn't get that from the presentation. I did understood that something was going to start next month, but I wasn't clear if one of the projects already started. So I would like to have more information through you, Madam Chair, on the different projects, the school agri initiative and also the hydroponics, to know the details of those two projects. Also, what I would like to ask through you, Madam Chair, in regards to the collaboration, for example, with the Justice Ministry. I know, for example, that Turning Point is actively busy with agriculture, and I was wondering if the minister, together with the Minister of Justice, also looked into collaborating within the House of Detentions and MLC to see that as a rehabilitation, as a resocialization program, to also create jobs from within. I do believe it used to happen in the past, but it has stopped. So I was wondering if the ministry has looked into the collaboration with the other ministry. And then in regards to the educational aspect of it, let me see. I think that question was already answered, so already asked, so I will leave it at that, just to have the question answered in regards to justice, collaboration and such. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. And the next speaker, the next MP to speak is MP Brug. MP Brug, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. To the Honourable Minister and the support staff, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very in detail and also very comprehensive. Just a few questions in addition to what my colleagues have already mentioned. You mentioned that the budget is not enough for agriculture at the moment, but you did not mention what exactly would be an ideal amount for us to actually not only run the department, but also run all the different projects that your ministry intend to execute. A follow-up question also, it was hinted by one of the previous speaker before me. What is the ministry thought in the community farming? What is the ministry thought in community farming? And also, with regard to one of the issues that was stated is that the scarcity of land. That's one of the issues that St. Maarten face. So my question is, considering that I'm not sure if the zoning policy is completed or is still being worked on, but is it perhaps an idea that we can have a conversation perhaps with your counterpart, Minister of Romy, or whoever is dealing with that, to see if maybe we can allocate specific lands specifically for farming, especially if government still owns lands out there, that we can allocate it specifically for farming. With regard to, this question was already asked. Okay, Madam Chair Lady, I think I would leave it at that. Most of my questions was already asked as well, so I'll await the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Brug. The next MP up to speak is MP Irian. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Good morning, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to my colleagues. Good afternoon to the Honorable Minister of TIAT and her support staff. Good afternoon to the viewing public. I would like to thank you for the presentation and especially the fact of visiting the farmers on the island, and even the smaller ones, the ones that typically aren't seen as much. You mentioned my uncle, Dr. Richardson, but I also want to recognize my grandfather, actually, Walter Richardson, who I consider a pioneer and a forefather of agriculture on the island when it comes to farming, and also not just farming, but championing agriculture and fighting for farmers over the last couple of decades. And over the years, I see that some of the concerns that he had back then, I would go to the fields with him 10, 11, 12 years old. And even though I was a lot younger then and might not understand the plight that he had then or the vision he had then, I do see it now, and some of the concerns that he had then still exist today. So on the field, for example, when he would be at Edmund Wilson Park, I believe Mr. Bushman also should be there in the back, he would say to me that, look, we are here working every day, and we are tilling the ground, and we need support from the government. You know, we have housing, the government supports everything else but agriculture, which we need to sustain ourselves. And one of the things he did, he built a well. He said, okay, I have the well, but now we need help from government, which he didn't get at the time, to fill the well. So my question is, were there any conversations with GB in terms of a special tariff for farmers? So he said we can't have commercial tariffs or even household tariffs. We need a special tariff specifically for farmers. Has there been any discussion with GB on this? Also, while being in office, I also fought with GB on the same topic also, not just having a tariff for farmers, but actually having a tariff for products that are produced locally using water. So for example, you have St. Maarten Beer, XSM Beer, you have our local water company, you have farmers. These are companies that cannot exist without using water. So it's very unfair, I would say, or very impractical to have them being charged commercial rates or higher, or even household rates for something that they are using to sell as a product. So if we are talking about selling our local products, I think we really need to have a lower tier for these specific entities going forward. It was a discussion that I brought up with GB. I was even looking into the legislation at that time. I think it fell on a TIAT and collaboration with TIAT, potentially Romy. But I think if we really want to start to promote these other businesses, we need to have a special tariff specifically for them. Like I said, I enjoy the presentation, and what it does, it shows our potential, but what I don't want to create is an impression to the farmers that some of these initiatives will be executed in the short term. And the main reason why, because I believe the presentation does not show, or there's a lack of financing or finances connected to the presentation. Actually, during the whole presentation, I don't think I saw any numbers connected to the presentation for the majority of it. So, like the previous question, the discussion about a agriculture department, what does this look like? What does the cost of this department look like? What is the timeline that this government has to establish this agriculture department? It was a discussion before with the former head, Ms. Valia Pantaflet. So I believe something has started, but what is the timeline for this department? And obviously, I'm assuming it will be in phases. So can we get a breakdown of the next, let's say, 4 years in terms of cost per phase? And will we see this not just in the presentation, but can we expect to see this in the amended budget 2024 or budget 2025? In terms of, and what I didn't see here, yes, you mentioned again, briefly, the things that need to happen, so policies, legislation, but for the presentation of Parliament, I would have wanted or expected to go a little deeper into these policies or legislation so that the public also knows areas that we could start to tackle, especially members of Parliament, before a department is established. For example, right now, we're one of the few countries, I would say, that anybody on this island, any company on this island could just import any plant, right? So we could just bring in plants to the country with no checks, and then it might be a plant that is invasive or actually damages the ecology of our island. If you go to, let's say, back to St. Kitts where you visited, you cannot import a plant without it going through the agriculture department first. Because of insects, because of diseases, because of a lot of reasons. So in the meantime, without the existence of our department, we can establish policies. And I think these policies can be established in a shorter period than, let's say, for example, the department, and it potentially can generate revenue. So it could be a policy not just to deter persons from bringing in stuff, no, but a policy that actually generates revenue. One of the things that, as I mentioned, with GB in the water, the farmers cannot exist without water. So if GB cannot, in this current time, lower tariffs for farmers, is the government, as you mentioned, looking at then a water subsidy? And again, will this be reflected in the budget 2025? Yes. You could also check with the Ministry of Finance. We were working with credits on a farmer's loan at, I believe it was about 2%. And we also were working on a farmer's course. So instead of doing things double maybe, we could also continue the projects that we were looking into or started in terms of spending less money. So credits was established in a specific loan specifically for farmers that we collaborated with them on, but what they needed was a portion of that budget from finance. So we would then put up, let's say, 250,000 guilders, and then they would give out loans up to 1 million guilders. So that's something that we could also look into, and I would also like to then see that maybe put into budget 2025, because then we are quadrupling the opportunities for farmers. Again, back to water. If the water subsidy, for example, is too costly, I still would like to see it in the budget 2025, obviously, but maybe not on the levels that we can in the years after, so 2026, 2027, 2028. But in the meantime, what we do have is wells. So we can also, and we have water trucks, that government-owned water trucks. So we can also establish that, hey, these farmers have wells, let's deliver the water for free to the farmers in the absence of a subsidy. So that's my suggestion to the government. We have water trucks that we own since Hurricane Irma. There are farmers now that already have wells. the government can, through the Ministry of Brummy, help them build wells on their farm or even above ground cisterns. And then we deliver the water to the farmers as an initiative in the absence of GEB or the water subsidy. And I think this would be a great help going forward. And speaking of the wells, I know the former Minister of Rummy had repaired a few of the wells, and we were busy also establishing and identifying all of the wells on the island, especially for the hurricane season. I would also like to see that project continue, but not just for disaster. But we have a situation now where there are companies from the northern side that use our wells and then sell, especially at a premium price, to homeowners, for example. So they take our free water and sell it to the persons on the southern side and make money and a profit. So I think there needs to be some type of policy on who can access the wells, but also at what cost, because you're making a business off of our water, right? So is that fair to us as government, to our people? And we also need to finalize the establishment of accessing this water before peak hurricane season. So we can't have the wells tapped out. So I don't know the data on the wells. I can't say I do, but I know some wells fill up faster than others. But we have to be able to say, hey, there needs to be a certain level of reserve between the hurricane season, because we can't have a disaster and then we need water as a community, which you mentioned already is 3 times that of Nevis and double that of St. Kitts, that we need access to water and we don't have access to water. So I'd like to have that finalized, and the policy on who can access the wells and at what cost. And identifying where the wells are. So I know, for example, the reason why it's called Well Road is because there's many wells there, but it also has, as for example, septic running into some of the wells. So even the water now, we have to check to see, hey, is this even healthy for people to be using? It's mixed. You mentioned also invasive species, and I am one that believes you can't be for farmers and then still be. We can't say oh we are for the farmers at the same time say we for the monkeys. I believe you have to have a stance. I am for the farmers. I am not for the monkeys. I am not for invasive species that don't belong on St. Maarten. And I know it's going to be a thing, maybe even on Facebook, especially with the tourists. But I live here. I don't visit here. I live here. So anybody who wants to get upset about my position, you're free to do that. But my position is I am for the farmers. I'm even for my own mango tree, my sugar apple tree at home that I can't even pick from. So I choose me over monkeys. And we have to start the process of elimination. I know we gave money to the Nature Foundation, I believe, almost two or 3 years ago. I know MP Westcott brought it up. I don't see anything happening with it. No, there's a lot of talk about it, and there's nothing. I heard that they needed somebody to help, need to hire somebody, but at the end of the day, the money was given and no updates has come. And they don't have any natural predators, so they were just increasing. There's no way we could stand here in Parliament today and say, oh yes, we want to do all this for agriculture, but the farmers cannot execute anything with the monkeys. And yes, we could start the process of spaying and neutering, but I don't believe that's enough. If you look at other islands, I was even updated yesterday by Mr. Holly. If you look at other islands like St. Bart's, for example, that took an island, and before I get to the monkeys, we also have the iguana issue. Same thing. The iguana that we have here is a combination of 2 or 3 different iguanas that are not local to us. They're actually killing off our local iguana. I think we have less than 5% of our local iguana left. And if you look at what St. Bart's did, for example, they took their local iguanas, put them on an island, and started to cull all of the other invasive iguanas on the island to then reestablish the local one back in population. This may be something that we have to do. I also believe in supporting an initiative that I plan to champion as a member of parliament, and even looking at the legislation of this. There are, on the front side, for example, we could import air guns. And I know, for example, that I've seen within 1 hour of individuals, let's say, hunting, and the culled at least 100 iguanas within an hour time. I believe we need to establish something similar on the Dutch side. Let's establish basically an open season, a hunting season for a couple of months with the air guns, so again, and allow persons to go up in the hills and start to reduce the amount of iguanas that we have. I would like this to be looked into with the Minister of Justice in sort of a collaboration to establishing this. So that would then allow even the importation of these air guns very strictly. And also you have to change, so we can adapt the legislation. And look at then something similar to Aruba. Aruba has invasive snakes, pythons. They establish an open season to cull the pythons, because what the pythons do is kill all bird species, local lizards, and so forth. So we're not the only island that has issues with invasive species, and all the islands then have a culling season, an open season. Statia has it with goats. I think Sabre also did it with goats, where they flew in specialized persons from, I believe, Switzerland or whatever, that were brought in to reduce the amount of goats that was causing havoc. So again, if we believe in agriculture, we can't believe in invasive species at the same time. We have to choose. We even have now raccoons on the island. Raccoons are not local to St. Maarten. So, and again, that comes back again with policy, allowing persons to just bring in any island and any type of animal on the island that then populates. Right now in our current legislation, I believe, you could correct me if I'm wrong, if you maintain a certain level of livestock on a certain amount of square meters of land, that farmer or that individual that owns the livestock or land is allowed to have a rifle. This is a very, very, very old legislation, I believe. You could correct me if I'm wrong. I would like you to confirm through Madam Chair to the Minister with the Ministry of Justice on this legislation. I believe it's from like the 40s. I was also updated on this yesterday. This would then, if this exists, this would then be able to fast track my previous proposal of at least then allowing the farmers to take rights into their own hand when it comes to species like iguanas, etc., and raccoons. Yes, this comes to the end of my questions. I look forward to the answers, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irian. I now give the floor to MP Doran. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Good morning, Chair Lady, Honorable Minister, support staff, my colleagues, and a special good morning to the people of St. Maarten that are tuned in. I would like to start first and foremost to commend the Minister and the Ministry for the presentation, and not only the presentation, but the manner in which I see that they are taking the point of agriculture. I think that it is very important. I strongly believe in food security, and even as minister, I was able to allocate, I think, 2 or 3 plots of land with agriculture purposes. So therefore, it goes to show that once the ministries work hand in hand, a lot can be done. I know that a lot of research has gone into this, but one of the things that I think plague us as a country is the lack of continuity, because over the last at least 14 years, we've had a lot of discussions on a lot of different topics, and once there's change, everything changes. It is not only frustrating for the organization, but frustrating for the island that does not benefit from it. So I'm glad to see that these efforts are continuing and even upping it a notch. Most of the points brought forward, like the water incentives, were some of the points that I had, so I'm not going to delve back into that. But one of the points that stood out, which I agree with, I agree that we do need to have, through you, Madam Chair, a sort of a exemption when it comes to tax. However, I believe that we have to be careful that we don't discriminate, and that the the scope is broadened in the sense of categorizing businesses so that you do it a sort of a small business relief, however you do it, and then you put agriculture in that category, then at least there would be avoiding any semblance of discrimination, because some people that have small businesses that are contributing to the island's well-being in their own way would also feel a type of way that, you know, the core focus would only be on agriculture. So I do agree with the tax exemption, but I think that we should broaden the scope if it's not being done already in that respect. As I mentioned, most of the questions that I have were posed already, but I would really like to know if thought was put into broadening the scope of a sort of tax exemption in terms of categorizing the businesses. And that will be all for now, Madam Chair. I look forward to the response. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the presentation once again.
Thank you, MP Duran. I see MP Irian would like to add something to his previous notes. MP Irian.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding, because MP Duran said something, it triggered actually the beginning of this presentation today by the minister. It mentioned food security. And, you know, I have, let's say, concerns in the way we bring across that message, because it comes off as if we can produce enough to supply enough food locally for the island. I want to maybe ask if that's possible. So, for example, I know St. Kitts, yes, they have agriculture. Matter of fact, there's even a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, where St. Kitts actually diverted from agriculture and actually shifted more to tourism. The reason why, let's say, sugarcane is less produced there than it was 20 years ago, and it has gone more to South America, etc. So, when it comes to food security, how much of the produce produced on St. Kitts is actually consumed locally? For example, in the Dominican Republic, they produce, let's say, bananas, but those bananas are only for majority for export. They actually leave the Dominican Republic, go through a whole process, branded and labeled, go to the US, and then sold back in the DR at a much higher price. Only a very small percentage is actually used for local, let's say, consumption and food security. So when we look at St. Kitts, based on the data that you have, how much food is produced in St. Kitts used for local consumption, and then what is that calculation then for food security? Matter of fact, what is our calculation for food security? If we say we have a hurricane, a natural disaster, or whatever, and we're talking about food security, what is the calculation that the minister using to say establish food security going forward? How much will we have to produce locally to be able to have a healthy, nutritious meal locally? And if it's a very low amount, or let's say a lot lower than we believe, should we then not use it as a different term, food supplementation, and just coin our own term in terms of not saying food security, because we cannot possibly maybe establish that. And since you're also the Minister of TIAT, I believe I hear a lot about creating a second or third pillar, because tourism is a number one pillar. I don't see us being able to deviate from tourism, as we are 95% dependent on that. I do see us using tourism to enhance other fields and markets. And what I didn't see in this presentation, for example, is how can we now, let's say, have, like LSH, for example, does tours. I don't know, I'm pretty sure they can't do this, maybe do massive tours, but how can we now have a combination of tourism, having cruise passengers visit these farms so that they have a supplementing income going forward. So not just having agriculture to sell, but also ensuring that tourists are able to visit these farms, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Irian. Thank you, members of Parliament, for your contributions to the discussion and to the presentation made by the Minister on the plans and intentions for agriculture animal husbandry and fisheries, in fact. I too want to join the members of Parliament as I thank the Minister for her presentation and the efforts of the Ministry in this regard. And many of the questions that I have been posed already by my colleagues, members of Parliament, but I would like to add to those. So after expressing words of thanks to the Minister once again for her very elaborate presentation and a clear outline of the intentions where this matter is concerned, and I think the question was asked by a member of Parliament before, but I want to zoom in on it as we look at the ALF department. And has the minister have the time already to develop a project for the establishment of this department with cost and timeline? So is that already available? Is it in the make? And if so, if the minister has an idea as to when we can receive a proposal with cost and timeline of the ALF department. The minister has referred to the agriculture policy of 2022, and indeed another report here on the books outlining, first of all, the state of agriculture on St. Maarten. And in that policy plan, there is a plan of approach. It's called a plan of approach. And I would like to know from the minister whether an implementation plan based on this policy has been established with measures, specific budgets, and specific budgets. It's my question, because I heard the minister said that this is basically the basis for some of the things that are being done. But I believe with a clear indication of the implementation, the measures, and the budgets, a better overview can be had and can be done with respect to the implementation itself. So we have a better instrument to make sure that the things that we want to do are being done, and if they can't be done, reasons why. In that same policy, reference is made to diversification in the area of agriculture, and specific mention is made of recreational and medicinal marijuana. We understood from a previous administration that steps were made with respect to this particular issue, and if the minister can inform us where that stands right now. I remember it being presented to Parliament that a request for proposals was issued and that subsequent offers were made to government. So if the minister can just give us an idea where that is concerned. Again, I want to highlight that it is something mentioned in the agriculture policy of 2022 under the topic of diversification of our agriculture. I joined my colleagues in expressing serious concerns with respect to the invasive species here on St. Maarten and their effects on agriculture and our local, what we grow, what we have, I mean, you name it. And so I am quite interested to learn about the EU project, and again, what is the status, where are we with it, you know, what needs to be done in order to see this move forward. As MP Iran indicated, yes, indeed, the Parliament approved, I believe it was unanimously, part of a motion 2 years ago, I think it was, and having to do with giving the Nature Foundation a budget to deal specifically with the issue of the monkeys. And I know they started with a project to eliminate, reduce the monkeys population on St. Maarten. And I don't know if that budget was exhausted and what the state is now with that particular program. But like a colleague mentioned, it was, I can't even say ironic, because it was not funny for persons outside of St. Maarten to start a Save the St. Maarten Monkey I mean, that was a effort that was started. Save the St. Martin monkey. Nobody on St. Martin wanted to save the St. Martin monkeys, but others who know better than us apparently about the St. Martin monkey started that drive. That's what it was. Save the St. Martin monkey. So saying all of that to say, if we could learn some more about this EU project to make sure that again we can keep our finger on the pulse of this project and see how you know it can continue. I know that, for example, the Nature Foundation that was given funding by the government through the Parliament's motion was actually up against some of these type of efforts. They had to face the fact that others were saying save it, and what they were doing, what the Nature Foundation was doing was, according to the others, not the right way to go about it, etc., etc. So because we really have to address this matter. Many of my colleagues mentioned the issue of water and water management. Now, I remember some time ago, coincidentally being told that and now I kind of look at my colleague MP Duran, who might be able to provide some insight into it. What I was told is that someone submitting a request for a building permit for a residence, if the person had proposed a cistern, that was taken out, or it was proposed to be taken out of the plan. I always try to understand, I don't know if it is still the case, I always tried to understand rather the purpose of that, never really got any insight, just a few disappointed persons who were told that, and this was some time ago. And I ask about that because the issue of water management in general, also based on the UN's SDGs, is something that we need to look at carefully. Water management in general, to be able to make use of, amongst other things, rainwater. I remember years ago, former Prime Minister of the Netherlands Antilles, Mr. Don Martina, had started for the lack of a better word, a movement to reserve and preserve and store rainwater. Remember, that was a big thing back then. But based on that, however, there was a committee formed and established in Curacao that eventually produced a document, Water Management on Curacao, looking at things like, because the traditional way of thinking about rainwater was to get it off to the sea as quick as possible, get it off the land into the sea as quick as possible. That report, which is available, Water Management on Curacao, the future of water, the toekomst van water, and it was made for Curacao. A whole elaborate research went into that. And again, here we look at things like capacity, having a few dedicated persons to say, this is what you got to study, this is what you got to come up with. And we don't have that luxury to be able to put 5, 6 persons knowledgeable of the topic in this area, that area, and the other area. For this reason, I believe that we need to look seriously at plans that are being worked on in the context of the TWO, and make sure that the plans that are coming out of this work and this organization are plans that will benefit St. Martin, like these types of researches, etc., etc. And again, looking at your presentation, I just want to say through you, Madam Chair Lady, but I got to say directly to the Minister, looking at your presentation, Minister, only strengthens my belief that we need to address and review, amend our budget, not only financially speaking, but the way that our budget is presented. Now I know exactly what all will go into what I am suggesting, knowing very, very well how the whole budgetary process and the budget itself of St. Martin works. However, when I hear these type of discussions in all of the areas, and I hear the effects of, for example, to get to a good agriculture policy and execution, and we look at it across the different ministries, the need for ministries to collaborate to make this happen, it just shows how important it is that we have more topical budgets than ministry budgets. So rather than a budget for general affairs and everything that falls under general affairs, we got to look at some of the topics and have that budget that runs across ministries. Agriculture, for example, and every ministry that needs to give something into making that a reality. Seniors, youth, etc., etc. So moving from the more ministry-specific, to use a word of His Excellency the Governor, the kind of silo operations that we see because of the divisions in the budget based on ministries, I think we need to review that, not only the budget itself, but also our model, our financial model. The same report that I referred to from Curacao, The Future of Water, was prepared in the context of the funding necessary for climate change. Again, we need to look at the different financing modalities and in order to support our own local budget, because this going back and forth, not going back and forth, going around in circles on 550 more or less million guilders every year, noticing the need, because when push comes to shove, the matter of agriculture is only going to be as successful as we can deal with the financial implications, whether they are direct in government doing certain things, or it is because we're looking at tax incentives. You name it, it's going to have an effect on the budget. And with the scarcity of money on one hand and the many things that we need to do, we need to look at a new financial model for St. Maarten. And again, I want to thank the Parliament of St. Maarten and our Secretariat of St. Maarten for working with us in making the theme that we selected for agriculture and sustainable practices in agriculture a successful one. Basically, underpinning as well the need for government and Parliament to work together in this area. As the minister indicated, we have a committee for such established, and together with the government and what the government is doing, we need to work together to really see things move forward. And we mightn't know, but what we say here in Parliament and regarding, for example, a topic such as this is being picked up. It's being picked up regionally, as because of the theme chosen by the Parliament and everything that went around it, I received a message from the Caribbean News Desk. And the Caribbean News Desk and the journalists of that news desk wanted to know if, based on the theme of Parliament, I was attending the CWA 2024, the Caribbean Week for Agriculture, being held, all of this I learned from the message, from October 7th to 11th in St. Vincent. Now, the reason why the journalists asked that is because, of course, their system is different than ours, where you have members of Parliament who are also holding the post of ministers. So the minute that the journalists heard of Parliament's approach or Parliament's theme, that was the question. So I put this to the minister as well. So there is a Caribbean Week of Agriculture 2024. It's in it, if I remember correctly, in its 13th year. So it is something that is held annually, and it is being held in St. Vincent from October 7th to 11th. And I think this would be a good approach and a good indication of collaboration between government and Parliament if this was to be looked at. And then a note to self, and the self being Parliament, is that we have to follow up on the collaboration and cooperation that we were looking at also in the context hereof with Suriname. So that is something for Parliament as most of you know, we have visited Parliament, we have spoken about the exchange, we have spoken about the land situation, and you name it. And that is another area where I believe government and Parliament need to join forces if we really want to see things move forward. It makes no sense for Parliament to be on one trajectory where this topic is concerned and the government on another trajectory. So I am very hopeful with the presentation by the minister and knowing the efforts here in Parliament that we will be able to really make some things happen in the area of agriculture, animal husbandry, and of course fisheries. And I ask that these the two latter ones not be forgotten. Our fishing industry, if left unassisted, is basically a dying industry. And to really get fish from our own waters right here is becoming very, very difficult. It is becoming very, very expensive, and I say this because I know. And if we really want to do something in terms of promoting it, then we have to understand what our fishermen and women, very few. If we have two of those, we have a lot, but they need assistance. And the same thing for animal husbandry. As you know, I too come from that area, not pretending that I did anything myself, but I do know a thing or two about animal husbandry just by it being done by my late husband. So whether I liked it or not, I was faced with it nearly on a daily basis with having to look after, amongst other things, goats right outside my home. But that is just to show. So no, I had to add that in. And no, but Minister, thank you once again, members of Parliament. Thank you for your questions and your comments. And Minister, you have the floor, and I would like to hear from you how you would like to. Oh no, before I do that, before I give you the floor, Minister, we do have MP Jacobs who wanted to add something to the discussion as well. MP Jacobs.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Indeed, I was trying to get it before you made your closing remarks, but you'd already started. There were two other questions, three, actually, one added on based on what MP Westcott Williams was stating. The marketplace recently mentioned as being having a groundbreaking for it. Is the vision for this marketplace also going to include St. Maarten cultural articles on sale, as well as promote the sale of local produce? Also, what is the minister's position on the development of the growth and regulation? I did hear MP touch on this, but I would like to know the minister's position on the development of the growth and regulation of cannabis and its derivatives as a source of economic diversification within agriculture for medicinal and recreational usage here on St. Maarten, and also, as was asked before, the status of the proposal that was already approved or awarded in the RFP for the legislation on such. So the update on that. And the last question is, we did receive the agri-policy of 2022. Thank you for forwarding that to Parliament. And in just scanning it, because of course it was approved in the previous administration, but in just rescanning it, I could see that most of the goals, as was mentioned in your presentation or asked here on the floor of Parliament by my colleagues, are in there. Is it the intention that this will be the policy that the minister will be following going forward in terms of the legislative changes needed, the expansion of the AFL, and all the other actions that have been brought forth as needed for us to actualize St. Maarten really increasing the sustainability of farming and ensuring that it is a sustainable practice here on St. Maarten. Madam Chair, that is it at this point. And I also, if I didn't initially, want to thank the Minister for the presentation made here in Parliament today. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Jacobs. I see that MP Duran also wishes to add something to his comments, his commentary. MP Duran.
Thank you for the indulgence, Madam Chair. I do have one extra question through you to the Honorable Minister. I know that last year 7 million was requested via the Groei funds. I would like to know if there has been any update on that since that request was submitted. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Duran. Yes, I think the Minister, you got that on the Groei funds? Yeah, you may, yes. Minister? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, through you. So the question, just a general request, not specifically earmarked to anything.
MP Duran, you may explain your question.
Yes, so the question is, was there any update based on the 7 million that was requested for agriculture on the subject matter? Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Duran. And now I look to the Minister to hear her proposal as to how going forward. Minister, you have heard the remarks and the questions by members of Parliament, and how would you suggest that we proceed on the topic? Minister?
Thank you for the honorable members of Parliament for your questions, also your suggestions, great suggestions that I will take into consideration. Madam Chair Lady, is it possible to just take 1 hour to go over the questions and answers, and I get back to you, if it's okay with everyone?
Sure.
Most of them
When
are.
I say sure, I also look at the members of Parliament as we adjourn this meeting. It's now, give or take, 1 o'clock, and if we resume at 2 o'clock, and we have MP Irian who wants to have something clarified. MP?
Just want to clarify if you're going to have all the answers within an hour, or
Yes.
is, okay.
Yes.
Okay, and I would think that if that is not the case, that the minister will then be able to, to say, well, from her answer, I understand the minister to say she have all or nearly all, because I could imagine something would be in the questions that would require some more time, but then the minister would indicate that to us. But it seems as if the majority of the questions
Yes.
can be answered within an hour's time.
Yes.
So with that, I would want to adjourn this meeting of the Central Committee of Parliament until 2 p.m. today. Meeting adjourned.